Well, it appears that there's a new Grinch this Christmas season, Jod Na Nawood, ruining fucking Christmas. Even though we've seen it coming, we've mentioned every episode of this podcast. Oh, I feel like Jod, I don't know, man. Everybody they've ever come across has been like, don't trust that Jod Na Nawood. Turns out they were right all along. Should have never trusted him. Fuck you, Jod Na Nawood. I fucking hate your guts this Christmas season.
Oh.
Welcome back to This is the Wayseekers, a podcast for Star Wars fans by Star Wars fans. My name's Austin SWE. I'm joined with my first mate once again, Scotty Holiday, to be talking Skeleton Crew. Scotty, it's Christmas Eve. We are recording. It's the last episode of the year for This is the Wayseekers. How are you feeling on this Christmas Eve?
I'm feeling very festive, very magical. I am Scotty Holiday, and it's a holiday, so
yeah, there you go.
I'm just like, my force meter is full.
Yes, it's like it was meant for you. Every holiday meant for Scotty Holiday.
No, not every. A lot of
You're right.
Not
You're right.
not the ones with racist connotations.
You're right. You're right. Well, I just want to say that I'm very busy this Christmas season, Christmas Eve. And then on top of it, Star Wars decides to release a new episode on December 24th. Christmas Day tomorrow, the Kansas City Chiefs play. I'm like, listen, I appreciate Star Wars. I appreciate football, but I am very busy. Can we have a break?
Yeah, no, and we'll be doing it again next week. So
I know. Well, it appears that there's a new Grinch this Christmas season, Jod Na Nawood, ruining fucking Christmas. Even though we've seen it coming, we've mentioned every episode of this podcast. Oh, I feel like Jod, I don't know, man. Everybody they've ever come across has been like, don't trust that Jod Na Nawood.
mm-hmm.
Well,
or whatever
turns out,
his name is.
Right. Literally, whatever the fuck his name is. Turns out they were right all along. Should have never trusted him. Fuck you, Jod Na Nawood. I fucking hate your guts this Christmas season.
Oh, that was a bit intense from the start. You're coming in hot.
Yeah, you're right. Well, Scotty, before we get into even more hot takes, what are we actually talking about today?
So we're talking about Skeleton Crew episode 5. You have a lot to learn about pirates.
Mm-hmm.
Clearly, so do we.
Yeah, so do we. Never trust a fucking pirate. Oh, I'm so mad, but we'll get to it. I do have to issue an apology at the start of this episode to Wim's dad. In previous episodes, I've speculated, that he may be the supervisor, he may be the pirate captain of the ship, he may just be an antagonist of some sort. He's not. I felt so bad seeing him worry about Wim and, yeah, like trying to get him back, almost risking his job in order to access this barrier code that Neel's mom, gave him. I was sad. I felt bad. So I'm sorry to Wim's dad. I can't remember his name. I know you remember it.
Wendell. Good old Wendell.
Sounds like a donut shop. Like Wendell's Donuts,
Well, speaking of, where were the lesbians? They don't work. They don't work a fancy job. They probably work at like the construction site or like at a community garden or something, or at the school. They're probably an art teacher or the theater teacher.
Yes. Or maybe they work in the mines, No. Remember KB's mom said they were like analysts or something.
Well, Wendell's an analyst.
Yeah, so that's true.
I don't know.
Maybe for like a different part. Who knows?
Yeah, you're right. But I was like, where were the lesbians?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm liking seeing these like little tidbits of the parents, usually at the start, because I feel like it's kind of this whole separate story is like building in the background with them trying to find the kids, and then we cut back to the kids and they're just having a grand old time on this adventure. But the anxiety part of me is like, holy fuck, these poor parents. Like, I would not be able to sleep. I still feel like they're underreacting to me, but maybe we're just not spending enough time with them. We don't see them at night when they're trying to sleep and can't because they're so fucking worried about those kids.
Well, and we know now that they're like trying to devise a plan to get a message
Mhm.
out of the barrier. So talk about their anxiety.
Yeah,
Like, I'm like, do they even have time to worry about their kids when they're so worried of trying to just get a message out
literally.
of the planet? And then
Yeah,
on top of that, worrying about, I guess, taking the veil off of Atten by sending
right.
out a message, like the risk that they're putting out that way, because we
Mhm.
still don't know what they know.
Exactly. We don't. And but I think they all are like very much starting to distrust this whole Atten thing,
Yeah.
especially Fern's mom. She was kind of talked into it. Like he was like, "Well, are the things you're doing working?" And she's like, um, no." So then she agrees to their plan, and it's like, okay. So I hope we get to see more of the parents take action, and I feel like they're going to be the ones that we kind of discover more about Atten through.
Oh, I like that idea. That's a
Yeah,
cool angle. I mean, even Wendell was like, I don't think the supervisor's actually going to help us.
right. Because the
So
supervisor ain't real.
it,
I am starting to think that the supervisor, maybe there was a supervisor at one point, but they're long gone now, and the security droids kind of just run everything. I feel like there is no supervisor. There's just this idea
I
of a
like that.
supervisor.
I like that. However, a theory that just popped into my head.
Hmm.
We know they work with money.
Right.
The banking clan was name dropped in this
Yes, it
episode.
was. Hmm.
It could be Darth Plagueis. No, I'm just kidding.
Well, we saw a mun. Did you see the mun in
A
the mud bath?
shirtless one.
I know. I
I
was
was like,
like,
oh.
okay. They had to use that asset for Darth Plagueis from the canceled Acolyte season 2 somewhere.
Yeah, that was fun, but I have a lot of fun things to talk about with this boss. I don't want to get too ahead.
Yeah. Well, let's start to get into it because the crew is back on the ship. They're trying to decide whether they should wake up SM-33. When they do, he's not really a danger. He's following Fern's orders, and he mentions his
Mhm.
previous captain named Captain Tak Rennod. And Jod is apparently a fanboy, a super fan of Tak Rennod, and knows the legend, knows the story.
Mhm.
He says that the story was he was after the treasure of Atten aboard the mysterious ship, the Onyx Cinder. Shout out Lego,
Ooh.
where he just poof disappeared. And I just want to know why he never mentioned this story beforehand, but
I mean, I guess he
whatever.
didn't know he was on the Onyx Cinder. It was the mysterious Onyx Cinder for a reason.
Right. But I think that realistically he might have brought up this story beforehand to kind of be like, because I feel like the dots are kind of there. A ship that mysteriously disappeared, reappeared somewhere, and
Mhm.
then Renaud disappeared at some point. I don't know. In my mind, if I was Jod, I would have been brought up this story and connected the dots beforehand. But
We don't know what he's playing. He's playing a game, and
yeah,
nobody else is on his
literally.
team clearly, but he's got something he thinks he has figured out.
Right. I have no idea. Even after the whole betrayal and everything, I'm like, where does he stand? Because I genuinely believe him in some of these moments. Like, for
Mhm.
example, when him and Wim were having a kind of heart to heart, and he literally said, "Your focus determines your reality." I was like,
Shout out Qui-Gon Jinn.
I know. Shout out Qui-Gon. I was like, wow, like that was kind of heartfelt. I can't remember exactly what he said to Wim, but it was along the lines of be who you want to be, forge your own story.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, that was really heartfelt. So for him to do that and say all that just to, in the end, betray them and have no problem with killing them if he needed to, just to
Mhm.
become the captain of the Onyx Cinder. I'm still getting ahead of myself. Fuck you, Jod. Fuck you, Jod.
I'm gonna call myself out a little bit on this because it's very Gemini energy
Hmm.
um, of Jod to be like that, and all the negative qualities, embracing our negative qualities. But I
Hmm.
had to laugh because when Jod noticed that Wim was crying, and you kind of see him like be like, "Oh, should I go talk to him? Oh, I
Right.
don't really want to, but oh, I feel like it's the right thing to do." Let me tell you that I have been in so many moments like that where I'm like, "Oh God, I don't want to." This person's being very emotional, and they need somebody to
Right.
be there for them, and I want to be, but like I have these other things that I want to do, and And then I
Yeah.
always end up doing it anyway. And I will say the only thing I didn't like that he said, and this was kind of harkening back to the Jedi, is like, you know, forget about your parents, forget about your
Mhm.
attachments. And
Right.
it's so funny because before like we even got to that moment in this episode, as like we first started, we saw the parents, we saw shots of the space and whatnot. I was like,
Mhm.
we haven't seen Jod do any Jedi things in a
I
while,
thought the same thing. I
or like
thought
any
the same
Force
thing.
things.
Right.
So this, clearly, the writers knew we would be like,
Right.
haven't had that little nugget in a while, and they're like, well, here we go.
Yeah, a very
So
forceful episode with Jod, that's for sure.
yeah, he used the Force a couple times
Yeah.
throughout.
And even fucking wielded a lightsaber, but
Well,
we'll get to it.
he picked it up.
He picked it up and ignited it and wielded it. We don't know what happened. The camera cut.
Don't know. So from here, we get the reveal that SM-33 might know where Tak Rennod had kept the coordinates to Atnan, where they
Mhm.
might find them. And it's supposedly in his lair on Skull
Mhm.
Ridge Mountain in like a data pad or something. And I was like, ooh, Skull Ridge Mountain. This
Right.
sounds really exciting. It's going to be things that go bump in the night, a little spooky, but a little fun, a little adventure.
Right.
And we did get that. Um, just not in the package that I expected.
Right. Yeah, they fucking changed up. They gentrified fucking Skull Ridge Mountain. Like
How
what the
dare they?
fuck, man? It's a
Literally.
resort and spa now, but you know, I'm sure we both loved the very cunty Bob. I don't know what you would call her, the hotel clerk,
I feel like
the front desk attendant.
she was like the front desk manager.
Yes. She was
She was
managing
running that shit.
everything. Yes, she
Mhm.
was. And when
Girl
she took them
boss.
credits, I'm like, "You go. You fucking go, girl. Take that
Yeah.
shit."
Yeah, I definitely would like to go to the Lanupa spa.
Mhm.
I might even go with a mun in a mud pit.
Oh, you wanna soak in the mud baths that used to be a way to cover the dead bodies
Yep.
of Renaud's enemies.
Doesn't that sound up
Fun,
my alley?
I guess.
I will say there was a really great scene when, and there were so many great scenes on this spa planet. We got so many aliens, but
Mhm.
I wanted to point out that the scene of like the hut in the mud bath,
Yeah.
and then the cut up to like the kids, like our main characters again, felt
Mhm.
so George Lucas. And
Yeah.
I really love that, especially because he's been in the news recently about his comments on Wicked, and then having that scene, I was
Right.
like, oh my god, this feels like it's right out of the prequels, or um,
Mhm.
out of like the special editions of the
Right.
original trilogy. I was like, I thought the hut was gonna be some kind of, we were gonna have to talk to the hut or something. I was like, is that
Right.
Rada the Hut? Is it
I
Jeremy
know.
Allen White?
That's the first thing I thought of when I saw the hut. I'm like, "Oh, no, huts are ruined for me now. All I'm gonna think about now is Jeremy Allen White is rumored to play a buff Rada the Hutt." It's
And I was
the
like, is that
emphasis
him?
on buff that I'm like, I c maybe the Mandalorian and Grogu has one thing I'm excited to see.
Yeah, we know you like Jeremy Allen White.
But from here, Jod swindles his way into getting the best suite in the entire resort for him and the kids to kind of get away and plan for a second of how they're actually going to get into the heart of this mountain. And while he's doing that, he comes across an old, not friend of his, I'd say an old enemy of his, an ex
Mm,
bounty hunter.
the Ventress knockoff.
Yes, I knew you were gonna say some shit like that. Do you think they're the same species?
I hope not.
I honestly don't think so. I don't think they look very alike, but you know,
The Ventress knockoff. That's why she's a knockoff. She wants to be a baddie like
she
Ventress, but
wants
she
to
was
be.
not.
Yeah, yeah, she kind of turned him in. But to be fair to her, after now experiencing Jod's betrayal, yeah, still fuck you, Jod. Um, I can see why she would be super quick to turn him right into Brutus. Like she said, he took a bounty from her and left her to die drowning in leeches. So
But she was like, it's all good.
yeah. Well, obviously it wasn't. I love her comment about, I even tried looking for you just to tell you it was okay. It was like, girl, come on.
You were going to shoot him and be like, hello, sir, I'm still alive, and fuck you.
Right. As she should. As she should. But yeah, Jod, he goes under the name Professor Gorlox. He gets in. Add another name to the list. What's the name she called him? I can't.
Dash Zentin.
Dash
Which
Zentin.
really feels like they went through the Knights of the Old Republic, like,
Mm,
name randomizer to try to pick your
right.
in-game character. Dash Zentin, Jodwick Zank. I'm like,
Hmm.
what are they coming up with these names? These feel like literally a Star Wars name generator.
Right.
Which
Yeah. No.
honestly, maybe they have to do that because there can
Mhm.
only be so many good names. But then Jod Na Nawood. So far,
Yeah.
every name has been much better than that one. You know who I really enjoyed while we were at the spa?
Who's that?
SM33. He
Yeah.
was so upset. He was like, "What is this bullshit? This is where we used to kill our enemies and pillage
Right.
and then he's like,
Yeah.
and now it's a spa."
A
Like you
fucking
said,
spa.
gentrification.
Gentrification of fucking Skull
It
Ridge
hit the Star
Mountain.
Wars galaxy. Woke.
But yeah, the fucking restraining bolt where he wasn't able to be violent. I was like, oh my gosh, you're taking a core part of SM33 out.
Literally. And I love the little like message when they first fly the ships in is like, everyone here is welcome as long as you're not bad.
Right.
I don't that's not exactly what it said, but it was basically that.
Yeah, as long
Like,
as you keep the peace.
yeah,
Yeah.
so it's like, we'll fuck you up if you try to mess things up.
Yeah.
'Cause this is a relaxing place for adults.
Yeah. But then again, the pirates are able to come in and just immediately shoot down the escorting ships in. And the way they landed, like on top of
Oh
the
my
other
god.
ships, I was like, this is fucking hilarious.
I know, and Girl Boss was braver than me because
Hmm.
I would have started going inside. I would have started booking it in my little
Uh
pencil
huh.
skirt and heels and shuffle back inside the building. She just was just like,
Well, she knows she has Old Republic credits in her pocket.
true,
And at any
very
moment,
true.
she could be like,
Maybe
save
she
me.
saw Brutus and was like, oh.
Oh, Brutus. Right this way.
I'll personally escort you to the mud pits.
Yes. But as Brutus and his pirate gang are making their way to Lanupa to capture Jod, the crew splits up and they make their way to the lair hidden deep in the mountain. They find their way and they have to go through all these booby traps. The one where they have to make the greatest sacrifice, where they thought that they had to sacrifice somebody. I was like, I kind of wanted to see them have just a little conversation about who it would be, but
Yeah,
it
yeah.
was cut off by Jod, obviously understanding pirates more because there is more to learn about pirates, as the episode title says. They're talking about money, and he throws in the money.
One measly little datery.
Yes, one little fucking Republic credit, and that did the job.
Old Republic credit.
Old Republic credit.
Remember, they're
My bad.
cooler, they're fancier.
My bad. But the way that acid comes back in, where this pirate gang that we've been following the whole time, they're killed by the acid when he orders SM33 to refill it with the acid, and the pirate gang is just gone. You don't got to worry about them no more, as far as we
You,
know. I feel
I
like
f-
Brutus might have survived. This is Star Wars,
oh
so
yeah, the pirate underlings were the ones doing all that dirty work. Brutus is waiting on the ship.
yeah,
I highly doubt that he's doing anything, or if anything, he's coming up the rear.
yeah. But that means Steve Urkel died, and that's
I
unfortunate.
know. Well, I don't think they would have cast Jaleel White just to have like 3 lines in the show. But
Well,
we'll see.
then again, how much work has he had since Steve Urkel? Genuine question, because I don't know. But
I
I
don't
feel like
know.
this might be one of his biggest projects in a few years.
And they have him in a really bad bald cap.
I know.
But that's besides the point. Something I want to talk about that I feel
Mhm.
like I didn't think about until we're kind of going back through the episode together is when the group has to split up, we kind of see Jod get a little angry,
Mhm.
let out
Yeah.
a little rage, and then we see him not think twice about filling the pool back up with acid to kill all the pirates
Right.
gruesomely. And that's all before his big betrayal.
Right.
So looking back, I'm like, oh, I see we were setting things up because
Mm.
I know the kids didn't act how I would have acted. If I was a child and this grown
Right.
adult started yelling at me, I would have been like taken aback. but
Right.
they were just kind of, and I think it's because they were having fun and like whatever. But I was like, oh, he's like getting really angry, and
Right.
it just did not sit well with me. But then I was like, whatever, he's just frustrated because he knows his people are after him. And
Right.
then, like I said, with the pirates, he didn't think twice about doing the acid, and I was like, I probably would have done the same thing,
Yeah.
like if I was in that predicament. But those were all these little kind of pieces of foreshadowing to the
Yeah.
ultimate betrayal.
Right, because they even have the moments between him and Fern, even at the start of the episode, where they're both like, "You're scared." Like they're both accusing each other of being scared, of not being great captains. Like I said, though, even though I've seen this coming and like have just been waiting for the moment Jod was going to betray them, I still think it was really, really well done to the point where I was still like, oh my God, like we're doing this right now. But it makes sense. It kind of lines up and parallels the story that SM33 told about Captain Rennod, where
Mm,
the first mate basically betrayed the captain,
because he got
challenged
greedy.
him, yeah, got greedy as soon as they were close to the treasure. So something about these pirates, and the second they see this treasure, just a switch flips off where they just all of a sudden have no sympathy or any care
Yeah,
for anyone else in the galaxy.
that's sociopath behavior.
Yeah.
Um, honestly, I'm not gonna lie. When he challenged Fern,
Mhm.
I was very scared that she was gonna die.
Really?
I thought he might kill her. Like
Yeah.
I thought that was in the cards, that
Right.
because it was just the way that the scene was done. The
Hmm.
acting was really good, and
Yeah.
just the tension.
Hmm.
Oh my god, I knew the lightsaber was gonna come back up.
Yeah.
That cut the tension like a knife, pun
Yeah.
intended.
Yeah. It was funny, and it was so perfect for Wim's character when Jod's even like, "This isn't one of your fairy tales, Wim."
I
And he
know.
fucking ignites the lightsaber upside down. I'm like, "Ugh, this is so me in Star Wars." I'd be scared shitless and be like, "I've seen all 9 Star Wars movies. I know what to do." And then open the lightsaber upside down. That was hilarious, but also so sad for Wim.
I know, and I love the way that it just kind of, like, bounced around on the ground
Yes.
afterwards. Like, and it killed all that tension, but in a good way. Like, there was
Mhm.
so much tension and something needed to be done,
Right.
and that made me laugh so hard. I was like, "Poor Wim," and I love just the way that they set up the scene like it was gonna be his big moment,
Right.
and then, like you said, it was just perfect for his character to just be, like, igniting it upside down, dropping it, and then scurrying back to hide with everybody else. And like
Yeah.
John said, it definitely wasn't like one of his stories.
Yeah, it's perfect. I also think it's clearly a High Republic saber because it's gold.
You know
Um,
what's funny about that though? Well,
what?
go ahead and I'll let you finish what you were saying, and then I'll.
Well, I was just gonna say I think it kind of gives a little more as to how long Atten has, basically this whole story of Onyx Cinder crashing. How long has it actually? How long ago did this actually take place? How long has Atten been shunned off from the rest of the galaxy?
Mhm.
It's like so they mix it up so much where it's like 1 second Jod is like aware of the captain and it almost seems like he looks up to him as like someone that he operated at the same time as, but then they go back to the
Mhm.
mountain and it's at this point where there's a whole ass spa and then there's treasure from what I think is the High Republic era. I'm like, they need to actually give us like a clear timeline here or like
We need
explain,
John to be
has
like,
it been
back in 35 BBY.
right? I just want to know, has it been like 500 years? Has it been 1,000 years? Has it been 50? Like, because I feel
Yeah,
like it's
I
all
agree.
over the place where I'm like, what
Well,
actually is it?
and I don't remember exactly when the High Republic period starts, but like the Old Republic is even further back than that. And I
Right.
want to say it's what, is it 500 years that like phase 1 of the High Republic started? 500
Um,
years before
no,
the.
it's phase two that's 500 years before the phase one is like 250 years before
Okay.
the Phantom Menace.
So we're talking at least like
A
a
long
long
fucking
time
time ago.
ago in a galaxy far, far away. But something I noticed about the lightsaber in that final scene is I did notice the gold too, so I immediately thought
Mhm.
High Republic as well.
Right.
and I don't know if this is just like a behind the scenes thing, but it looked a lot skinnier than the lightsabers in the Acolyte.
Right.
But it also looked skinnier than the lightsabers in the like main saga films. So
Right.
I was I didn't know if that was on purpose, if it was just because like this lightsaber wasn't actually like built to be a combat one with like a blade and everything.
Right.
Like with the ones in the Acolyte, how they had
Hmm.
more stuff inside them, which is why they were a bit thicker. So I wasn't sure if that was done purposefully, but I did notice the gold and I noticed it was skinny.
Yeah. I think maybe it's from an era of the Jedi where they were more in combat. Maybe that lightsaber is from the old Republic era with,
That's a
when the
really
Sith
great
are
point.
active. Yeah,
That's a
because it
really
makes
great
more
point.
sense for them to be skinnier sabers because it's easier to actually fight in combat with that versus the Acolyte sabers, which were thicker, which I kind of think might be because they're not very violent. They're not fighting
Yeah, they
at
focused
this
on the
period.
craft of it at that point.
Right,
Whereas,
exactly.
wow, now you sound like me coming with the lore bits, talking about back in the Old Republic they were fighting more because we had the Sith Wars, we had
Mhm.
the Jedi Civil War, we had the Mandalorian
Right.
Wars. Like,
Mhm.
there was a lot of war.
Mhm.
The only other thing I want to talk about before we really get into what we think could happen
Mhm.
is the hologram.
Oh, okay, yeah, of Captain Rennod.
What was up with the hologram? Why do they keep teasing faceless people?
Right.
What is this
Especially,
reveal going to be?
yeah. It makes me wonder because it's like what could it really be because it's not like it's going to be a character that we know. It's going to be a new character. So, what about this character is going to make his reveal surprising in the
Hmm.
end?
Because
No idea.
we had King No Head on at Akron,
Right.
which that was purposefully, there was no head on the statue. We
Uh-huh.
have the supervisor in general who we know nothing about, other
Right.
than if there is such a person, they're just up in their tower on
Right.
at Atten. And then now we have um, Tak Rennod,
Mhm.
who we his face we can't see either.
Right. And don't forget Captain Silvo at the start. Obviously, we know now that was Jod Na Nawood, but
Hmm.
there is a lot of faceless characters that will get a reveal later on, we can assume.
I don't know. I don't know who it could be because you're right. What is going to be the recognition? What are we going to see on this character that's going to be like the aha moment that's going to
Right.
really surprise us? And I can't think of anything because I was at first I was like maybe it's Gorian Shard, and then I was like no, that person's got a regular body. That would be
Right.
stupid. And like you said, we don't know how long ago
All
he
this
was
took
on
place.
at
Right.
Atten and when the ship crashed. So would it even be a character that we would be remotely like aware of?
Yeah. Not at all. Maybe from like an obscure book or something. Because they have been
Mm.
making references. There was like one of the nicknames that Jod took that was actually from one of the original Star Wars comics from the
Oh.
70s. What was the name? It was the one that Kim called him.
Oh shoot. Something about
Crimson Jack.
Crimson
That was
Jack.
it. Crimson Jack. Yep.
My favorite
Um,
liquor.
yeah. Well, I think we should get into our thoughts about where this could go because obviously the episode ended on a cliffhanger with
Yeah.
Jod picking up the lightsaber after the kids, he orders them to be imprisoned by SM-33 for conspiring mutiny against the captain or whatever the fuck, even though he'd only been the captain for 3 seconds. But,
Yeah.
you know, I think it, I think that is the definitive answer that he did like betray the kids because for a second there I was like, well, is he just like trying to become the captain and still is willing to work with them? But no, he became the captain and was like,
No.
fuck them kids.
Yup.
So that was the nail in the coffin there. Fuck you, Jod.
That almost makes me wonder because okay, let's say that from here, because SM-33 can't do anything about it,
Right.
based on his protocol.
Hmm.
Are they just going to go back to the Onyx Cinder and leave, and then the kids are in a booby trap somewhere?
Right. Yeah,
That
we have no idea where the fuck it could go.
I will say there is one thing that could be in the kids' favor, and it's
Mhm.
that Jod does take the restraining bolt off of SM-33.
Yeah.
So SM-33, depending on how they finagle, like, the way they talk to him and try to
Mhm.
override his commands and stuff, they could possibly, like the kids, I mean, could
Mhm.
do something to get him back on their side or to help them. But
Right.
if SM-33 and Jod take off in the Onyx Cinder, I almost feel like at that point the kids would have to go with the pirates.
Yeah. Well, what pirates?
Brutus.
They're dead. Well, I guess Brutus might be at
I
the
don't
ship,
think
like
all
you
the
said.
pirates are dead. Like I said, I think
Mm,
that there was probably some of them that died, but I don't think all of them did.
yeah. I'll have to go back and watch and look because they have that shot of like all the pirates there. So we'll see if
Oh,
who
you're
was actually
right.
there
And
and who
Jaleel
wasn't.
White's pirate was there.
Yeah. So yeah, Jaleel White's pirate. Yeah, he was like leading it, I'm pretty sure. So
Oh, because they sent
R.I.P.
that man in, and I was like, "Who is this random man?" And I
Right.
realized he was with the pirates. That was a really cool trap thing.
Yeah. Yeah, the booby traps were fun. It was very Indiana Jones,
Mhm.
I liked it. I liked it a lot.
I feel like this episode had a lot of nods to other stuff as well
Yeah.
between Indiana Jones. I almost feel like there were some Spirited Away nods where we have these
Okay.
big, weird, giant creatures in a spa. Like,
Oh yeah.
that's literally the setting of Spirited Away.
How could we forget the monster? I don't remember his name, but I thought he was so fucking cool and just
Cathalops.
yes, he just wanted entertainment, the way he just became cool with the kids. I thought it was funny the way SM-33 was like, "The captain's in danger. She needs help." And we get back and they're just fucking chopping it up. They're like, "Yeah, so Captain Fern led us against the Troik people." And I was like,
Yeah,
"I
that was
love it. I love it. I love how they made friends with him." And I don't know, he just had like one of those fun personalities that we get from Star Wars all the time. Very classic Star Wars character to me.
yeah, I really liked Cathalops. That was such a funny turn when he was just like, "Oh my god, please tell me a story when you get back too."
Right. Yeah.
Like,
It almost made me think like whenever Skeleton Crew ends, like a few seasons away or whatever, hopefully it gets more seasons, that like the last shot or the last scene is gonna be them going back to him and explaining all their adventures from the last 5
that
seasons
would
or
be
whatever.
cute.
I think it would be such a great way to end the series. But with Jod, still think that, like I said from the very jump, that we're gonna get a redemption story from him. I think that
Mhm.
there's going to be a moment. Hopefully, it doesn't come across as cheap, because I feel like it's very easy for it to. But I feel like there's going to be a moment where he comes in, the kids are in danger. They're like, "What are we gonna do? Like, it's over." And here's Jod Na Nawood saving the day, saving the
And
kids,
at this
and
point, lightsaber in hand.
right, exactly. I still think that that's a huge possibility. Or he's going to realize, like, he's going to try escaping and then realize he can't. Like, there's going to be something that he
Mhm.
realizes, like, oh, Wim would have done this and Fern would have done this. I actually need them. Let me go save them. Those are my kids. But as of right now, it's still fuck Jod Na Nawood.
Yeah, I don't think I really have an idea of where it's gonna go from here other than, like I said, I don't know how everybody's gonna get out. I could
Hmm.
see it being a situation where when Jod gets back up there, like, the security forces are like, "Alright, you caused all this mess, and now we've gotta imprison you." But he has a
Right.
lightsaber, which then begs the question, and I'd love to know your thoughts. How do you feel about a lightsaber being introduced into this series?
I think it was coming because they weren't having Wim idolize the Jedi for no reason,
Mhm.
and I think it's fun the way they do it, especially with the mystery of like what Jod's backstory actually is. Because from that scene, that's what I wanted to say earlier. From that scene, I started to really believe Jod that he was a Jedi just because of the way he was saying, forego your attachments,
Their
you don't
proverbs and
need
stuff, yeah.
them. Exactly. Your focus determines your reality. I'm like, he sounds like someone who grew up on Coruscant around
Yeah,
Qui-Gon Jinn.
for
So,
sure.
I am interested to see where that goes now that he does have the lightsaber and he's using the Force more. I want to know more about Jod. I need a whole episode dedicated to Jod's backstory at this point.
Well, I feel like we have time for that still.
Yeah. Yeah, we
And I
have
think
3 episodes left.
and I think, if I'm not mistaken, we've seen all the trailer footage. No, there's still a little bit that we haven't seen. Um,
I couldn't tell you what we haven't seen. Um, I know that this time we finally saw what the lair was. As we
yep.
talked about the last 2 episodes where that would actually show up. Here it is, which means that what's that building called? That they went and discovered last episode and is also on in the one
Well,
you think is a Jedi temple.
they called it the Fallen Sanctum, but it's the Supervisor's Tower on At.
Yes. So you talked about how you hope it's not as boring. Well, it's not going to be the lair, so it's still up in the air of how it'll actually look, Scotty.
I'll keep my theory going
Right.
and we shall see. I
Hmm.
really liked this episode. It was really fun. You
Yeah.
mentioned it was a longer episode. I didn't notice, but I probably enjoyed it so much because we got to have more fun with the characters. Um, Speaking of, there was some weird mention of KB and like Steam or something, which we
Yeah.
never saw come into play. So I'm interested to see if we see that in a future episode or
Right.
corrosion maybe from moisture.
Yeah, that's what Fern said, and I assumed it had something to do with her technology. But if
Yeah,
you remember in was it episode 2 or 3? Episode 3, where the parents, her parents say that
she
they
has a
lost,
medical condition or something.
yes, and they like lost track of her vitals or something like that. So I still, yeah, I'm still wondering if that's
Oh
gonna come
no,
into play at some point.
KB's gonna die next episode or be on her deathbed because her
Oh
vitals are
no.
low.
Oh no. Poor
Please no.
KB.
No, she needs her time to shine still, which
Yeah.
she did get some fun stuff this episode to do.
Hmm.
Um,
With the
I was kind
wrench.
that was a really funny moment. I
Yeah.
didn't know what she was holding, but then that mud just blasting them, that was so funny.
Right. Yeah. Very, very Star Wars once again, where it's just like
Mhm.
ridiculous the way that they're able to get past these guards and these stormtroopers and, droids.
But it felt believable because she was a kid.
Yeah, it did. It did. But like you said, I also enjoyed this episode a lot. I think that it was a big jump from last week's episode, which was not bad by any means. But
Oh,
this
huge
episode, I
jump.
was like, oh hell yeah, like we're back into it. So yeah, I'm very interested to see where the story goes. And Skeleton Crew just continues to be a breath of fresh air. So hopefully these next 3 episodes they continue to lock in. I need it. I want to love this Star Wars series. I want it to be my favorite so bad.
Yeah, I think we can both kind of rest a little easier knowing that this was episode 5 and it's
Yeah.
still going strong.
Hmm.
So I think we can kind of agree that the series is probably going to be good through the end.
Yeah.
Fingers crossed still, but like,
Fingers crossed, because I know Disney Plus is kind of known, especially with the Marvel shows, of dropping the ball in the last episode. So
mm,
hopefully they don't try to rush all of a sudden. Where in the last episode they need to get back to and they need to refine Jod. The parents still need to have their big moment. I'm really hoping that it's not a case like that. We're at the end of episode 7. We're like, oh fuck, they have a lot to wrap up in one episode, which, like I said, seems to be a reoccurring thing with Disney Plus shows. So
yeah. Do you remember actually last week when I mentioned who could be a good person from the Republic to like go to At and I originally
right, you
said
said
Leia?
Leia. Hmm.
I came up with a better idea that
Who's
would
that?
fit really well.
Okay.
Representative Jar Jar Binks.
Oh, okay. Representative Jar Jar Binks of Naboo. I think he's written out already, though.
He's not written out in canon, and he would only be in his 60s.
But in the Aftermath books, he's like a clown on Naboo. That's his whole thing.
Oh, that's from Aftermath?
Yeah.
Oh, well, we know
So
they
it's
don't care about
canon.
the books.
You're right, especially Aftermath. They already fired Chuck Wendig, so
But I was like, who would be a perfect character to come in here? But that's also like Jar Jar was created for the kids.
right.
Like, I
Yeah.
feel like he'd be it, and obviously he'd be older,
Hmm.
maybe wiser, maybe still a little goofy. I feel like
Right.
it'd be very endearing and fit very well in this series.
Uh-huh.
Um, and just to see that he's still doing his thing and like trying to make the galaxy a better place.
Yeah, I could see it. You know, the Mandoverse already has Ahmed Best on the
He's
payroll,
already on the
so
contract. Yep.
exactly. So we'll just have to wait and see. But Scotty, if there's nothing else to discuss, why don't you send us out of here for the last time of 2024?
Oh my gosh. Make sure to follow us on social media at Wayseekers Pod or wherever you get your podcasts so you don't miss any of our Skeleton Crew coverage. Thank you all so much for watching, and as always, may the force be with you.
Fuck you, Jod.